Hello, welcome to the webinar SEG Mentoring Program Discussion, Successes and the Path Forward. My name is Benjamin Larenas, and I will be your host and moderator for today. I'm a geologist from the Universidad de Concepción in Chile, currently based in Santiago, and as of last year, member of the SEG Early Career Professionals Committee. The SEG is a professional society dedicated to the advancement, discovery, and responsible development of mineral resources with members from all over the globe. If you're interested in details on our membership, please go to our website. And a special thanks to all of our members for attending this webinar. We have several upcoming events, including the SEG Membership Benefits Review on May 11th, the ODH Exploration Career Kickstarter on May the 27th, and the SEG Critical Mineral Series webinar, Speaking of Electrodes, Using of Chemistry and Mineralogy to Build Better Batteries on July 8th, which will discuss the new global energy economy and how it is changing the focus of exploration and mining. Please check back to our website as we continue to add details for these events. Here's a few housekeeping rules for our audience. Today's call will be listen only for participants, but we encourage you to ask during the webinar by using the Q&A button in the control bar that should appear either at the top or bottom of your screen. Questions on the presentation will be answered during the Q&A session following the panel discussion. Today's webinar is being recorded, and an archive will be available following the event on our website and the SEG YouTube channel as of next week. So, our agenda for today will feature a brief introduction about the SEG Mentoring Program by Jessie Clark, followed by Fabian Raverol, who will present us with the results of the Mentoring Program Feedback Survey. Then we'll go ahead with the panel discussion with our invited panelists, who all together represent different points of view and experiences about mentoring. We will end the webinar with an open Q&A session with the audience, so remember to submit your questions. So, before we go ahead, I'd like to conduct a poll to capture some information of the demographics and career stage of our audience. In order for us to adjust the content for today's webinar and for the SEG to improve upcoming events, we're going to leave this up for a few moments for you to answer, please. Questions involved in here are basically, which best describes you where you are currently in your career? Are you an undergrad student, a graduate student, an early career professional, industry professional? Do you work in the academia, the government, or other? Next question is about your age range. You can either answer between 18 or 24 as a student, as a young professional, or a mid to late career. Next question would be about the geographic region that you're based in, either North America, South or Central America, Europe, Africa, Australia, Asia, or the Middle East. And finally, we're asking if you have participated in a mentoring relationship anytime in your career, either as a mentor or as a mentee. I'm gonna leave this for a few moments for you to quickly answer. Great, so we've got the answers. I'm sure you can see them. So from what we see, roughly 1/3 of the respondents answered that they belong to the industry. Some of them, 16, 18, 26% are either a grad student or an undergrad student or an early career professional. And a small percentage is from the academia. Your age ranges are halfway on the early career professionals and mid-career professionals. We have a 20% student range also. We've also got some late career professionals between 26% and over 60% at 3%, over 60 years. I mean. So what about the demographics? We've got 1/3 of the respondents from North America, almost 1/3 also from South America. That is great numbers. We've also got some audience from Europe, Central America, Africa, and Australia and Oceania. That's good to see. We're expecting to have attendance from Australia and North America and the Americas in general. And finally, whether you have participated in a mentoring relationship, almost 1/3 of the respondents say that they have never been in a relationship, in a mentoring relationship. 16% are looking for a mentor-mentee. That's a low percentage for what we expected. 16% also have made 1 or 2 contacts with their mentor or mentee. And almost 40% have met several times with their mentor-mentee. That's a great number. That's very good to know. So as I mentioned before, we have 2 guest speakers that now have something to share with us. Jesse Clark will introduce the SEG Mentoring Program. He is the Chief Geologist of the Cortez District in Barrick Gold at Nevada in the USA, and also a member of the SEG Student Research Grants Committee. Next, Fabian Raverow will show the results of the Mentoring Program feedback survey that we conducted earlier this year. Fabian is a project geologist at Equity Exploration in Vancouver and chair of the SEG Early Career Professionals Committee. So today's event is all about mentoring. Whether you're walking your first steps in the minerals industry or you've decided to pursue an advanced academic degree, having a mentoring relationship is as important as packing your handlings during an exploration campaign. You might think that mentoring is only about asking someone to help you during the decisions you make in your life, but it is more than just that. Mentoring also helps in developing your full potential based on the transfer of knowledge through experience. But this is nothing without a trustful relationship where the mentor is constantly stimulating, challenging, and encouraging the mentee. Having a mentor as a young professional or as a student is very important. We believe that mentoring should be a lifelong commitment. Therefore, we encourage you to keep engaging in mentoring experiences during your career, even if you feel that you're far ahead along the path. If you started as a mentee, maybe you can shift the roles and become yourself a mentor for someone else who needs it. To discuss all of these thoughts, we have assembled an excellent panel of professionals with different backgrounds and experiences related to mentoring. On one end, representing the minerals exploration industry, Keenan Jennings from BHP will share with us his experiences as a mentor for Tiago Oliveira, also from BHP. On the other end, Elisabeth Holly from the Colorado School of Mines has been the academic advisor and mentor for Dante, who recently defended her PhD at the Colorado School of Mines too. However, none of them has participated officially with the SEG Mentoring Program, but today we want to talk about mentoring in general, and their experiences is as valuable for our purpose. Now we can go ahead with the webinar. Jesse, would you help us introducing the SEG Mentoring Program for our audience, please?
Thank you, Benjamin. And firstly, hello, everyone. Thank you to the organizing committee for inviting me to talk today. Special mention to Duncan Proctor. But thank you to everyone for joining us. I think it's going to be a great webinar today. This is a topic I'm particularly passionate about, mentorship. As technical people, we strive for leading best practice and excellence. Therefore, our career is a journey of learning, self-education, and development. It requires regular support, guidance, and sponsorship. Whether you're a student, early career professional, or in the last innings of your career, a mentor offers a close relationship of mutual respect and learning. This nurtures your existing challenges into future opportunities and growth. I'm very happy to say I've been very fortunate to have many mentors throughout my career that have guided me through my journey, offering not only technical, but career developing and personal advice, sometimes whether I asked for it or not. And that's the joy of having a mentor. First, I wanted to distinguish mentorship from sponsorship. These are both very important in our journey. A sponsor may be your direct supervisor or manager that provides regular guidance and directly opens up opportunities for you in your workplace. A mentor may be someone more displaced from your current working environment or outside your company who can provide impartial advice to ensure you're on track with your career and your life goals. So it's important to have a diversity of mentors. For me, some of whom have helped me upon very specific moments in my career, and others I regularly touch base with on many different topics and updates as they pop up. And I have a couple that I speak to almost daily who have made a significant impact to my career, and more generally as a person. I consider them great friends. A large network of mentors I've actually met through SEG, whether it was at an annual conference or another event hosted by SEG, but mostly through using the SEG Mentorship Program. This has been around for about 10 years now and has been tirelessly groomed by James McDonald, who has done an excellent job chairing the program throughout this period. The purpose of the program is to connect our members across the world with a range of experienced SEG members from a diverse range of sectors, from mining through exploration, government, consultancies, or universities, who are happy to discuss your work and your career and hopefully give you some sage advice. Each SEG mentor has a brief profile summarizing their experience and passions that is accessible online at the SEG website. The mentorship program, like our careers, is always on a journey of continuous improvement and change. With many success stories from the SEG platform, this is an excellent foundation to keep building on. There is an opportunity to further diversify the mentor-mentee population though, so we are fully inclusive of our membership base. What I hope we all achieve today is some great insight, and maybe flipping some of those statistics in that earlier poll that Benjamin raised, that we get more people aware and excited about a mentor-mentee partnership, listening to some experienced mentors and feedback and perspectives from mentees from our great panel, but also from our next segment that Fabian will introduce, which was a survey that captured feedback from a pool of prospective mentees, but also existing mentors on the current state of the SEG mentorship program. I hope you all get online and check out the program information and mentors, and that you also consider yourself to join up as a mentor and start pairing as a mentee with other mentors that are available. I trust you'll all enjoy hearing different perspectives today, and I will hand it over to Fabian now. Thank you so much.
Thanks for your words, Jesse. Next comes the presentation of the results of the mentoring program feedback survey by Fabian Rebrol. Fabian, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, thanks, Benjamin. So hi, everyone. So I'm just going to take a few minutes to introduce you the work that the early career professionals and students committees are doing behind the scenes. So we wanted to put those spotlights on today on all the mentoring opportunities that the SEG offers to all the members. And the first step was to assess the current mentoring program set up and led by James McDonald, so through a feedback survey that we sent earlier this year. The Q2 event is today, is where we bring the members together to talk about mentoring in economic geology. And today is the English version, and we are planning on organizing a similar event in Spanish in Q4 this year. And for the SEG 100 conference in September, we will be running different activities where students and ECP members could interact with mid-career and senior members through a roundtable discussion and networking events. So that's what we got in the pipeline for this year, focusing on the mentoring. The Early Career Professionals Committee, in collaboration with the Student Committee, have tried to dust off the SEG Mentoring Program and figure out how the SEG members make use of it. So, in other words, what works and what doesn't is what we try to understand. And to do so, we reach out to the mentors, participants by email, and sent a survey to the student members last February. So in the next few slides, I'm just going to give you like a brief overview of those results, and feel free to use the chat function so to post your questions or comments for the Q&A session at the very end. So let's start by the mentors, and it looks like most of the mentors are happy with the current platform and had the opportunity to be contacted by some potential mentees. However, the number of interactions strongly varies from one mentor to another, giving the feeling that the program could be potentially underutilized. There are many mentors waiting to be contacted by mentee. One of the strengths of this program is the diversity of the mentor pool that represents different regions, languages, backgrounds, etc. So there's of course room for improvements, such as like increasing the number of women and mentors from underrepresented regions, etc. The third point is about the challenge of keeping the relation alive over time, and this is related to expectations from both sides. So compatible personalities and communications are really key skills. And I'm sure that the panel is going to have something to say about that today. And lastly, this mentoring program is not only for students and early care professionals, but for everybody. And you can be both a mentor and a mentee. And this program is not the only way to find a mentor. And that's the objective of the activities at the SEG 100 conference. So on the student side, we ran a formal survey to collect more responses. And one of the first questions we asked was about the program visibility. And among the 111 responses we collected, 81% of survey participants have never heard about this SEG mentoring program. So there's clearly some room again for improvement, but unfortunately that's a missed opportunity for many members. So that's why we are here today. Another series of questions was about the relation between a mentor and a mentee, and more specifically here about the frequency of interactions and duration of a relation. So it looks like students don't meet their mentor quite often, but they wish to keep the relation alive for years and even forever, ideally. So that highlights the complexity of pairing two individuals that may have different expectations. And the mentoring program is here to help pair the right people together. And finding the right person to interact with is a real challenge and perfectly illustrates the needs for a pool of diverse mentors because expectations and needs from the mentees are different. So it's not only about the geographical area and language, but also personality, cultural backgrounds, work experience, technical and communication skills. So in conclusion, to wrap up that quickly, so we got some positive feedback from many participants, and it was striking that many people wanted to participate more and engage as a mentor or mentee or both. So there is some room, of course, as I say many times, like for adjustments, and we're going to work to improve the program. And we got many ideas that were suggested, such as like set up guidelines, define expectations, make sure the participants are active, and perhaps consider a more structured program with applications, deadlines, and organized meetings, for instance. So that's it for me, Benjamin, and thank you, everyone. And I hope you're going to enjoy the discussion. So thank you.
Thanks to you, Fabian. Those were very interesting facts and figures. So for now, I'm gonna invite our panelists for today to turn on their cameras so that we begin with the discussion. There we go. We are missing someone. There we go. That's it. So as a reminder to our attendees, you can submit questions using the Q&A button in the control bar. Attendees can see and upload the questions. We plan to answer as many as time allows. Not that we can all see you. Would you care to briefly introduce yourselves for our audience? Keenan, please tell us about yourself.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be. It's great to see such an international audience showing up. My name is Keenan Jennings, as Ben Kamin has indicated. I'm a geologist. I'm one of the ones more at the back end of the career rather than the front end of the career. I've been a member of the SEG. I'm a fellow of the SEG, have been for 30 plus years. And I am actually also a registered mentor for the SEG. My background is originally from New Zealand, and have worked sort of around the planet over the last 30 years. Also at various points of the value chain, so everything from generative exploration, target generation, through to working in a mine environment. So that's just a little bit about me. I'm currently the Vice President for Metals Exploration for BHP, and we're active across a number of countries globally, and exciting times for us.
Oh, great. That's good. Thanks, Keenan. What about you, Tiago?
Thanks, Benjamin. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me participating in this webinar. I'm Tiago Oliveira. I'm a geologist since graduated in Brazil. I've been working with exploration for the last 13 years of my career. I've always worked with exploration from different commodities, but also in different stages of exploration, early stage project generation up into project execution of advanced stage projects as well. Started my career in Brazil exploring for gold. Then I was fortunate enough to move to shift to BHP in 2011, and I started working for porphyry copper in the Andes across many different countries, including Chile, Ecuador, Peru, and some visits to Panama as well. Then in 2018, I shifted to IOCG style mineralization, and I came to Australia. Again, lucky enough to be part of a team that participated in the discovery of a deposit, Oak Dam in South Australia, and have been working in IOCG since then, and learned a lot with the team. And now recently working as a superintendent for the exploration team in Australia, and manage a small team of geoscientists across Western Australia and South Australia exploring for nickel and copper.
Excellent. Then thanks, Tiago. What about Elisabeth? You're up now.
Thank you, and thank you so much for the invitation to participate in this. I'm an associate professor at Colorado School of Mines. Mentoring and education are obviously subjects near and dear to my heart. I was part of the education and training program, and still am, although now it's in the capable hands of a doctor, and I'm really pleased to see the committee having done so much. I'm very excited to see what the mentoring program can bring too. So I lead the mining geology research group. Before I came to mines, I worked mostly in greenfields exploration on several continents. Now my group works on sedimentary rock-hosted gold deposits, magmatic hydrothermal gold deposits, critical elements, mine safety, and the social environmental context of both large and small scale mining. I'm actually hiring postdocs and research associates, so if you're interested, send me a message in the chat too. And it's been a real privilege to mentor Dante over the course of her PhD. So thanks for having us both here today.
Thanks to you, Elisabeth. Last but not least, Dante, can you please share with us about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So thanks for having me. Like Benjamin mentioned at the beginning, I just recently finished my PhD at School of Mines, where I worked with Elisabeth. Before I was in grad school, I'm originally from Canada, and I got my bachelor's degree from McGill University in Montreal a decade ago now. And after that, I actually worked for a very brief stint in oil and gas, and then did some consulting work for an environmental engineering firm. And coming back to grad school was my opportunity to come back to mineral exploration, which had been a love of mine in university that kind of got left behind. And so since being in grad school, I've had the opportunity to work on some greenfields exploration programs, all of which have been in Northern Canada. So I've done some base metal systems and gold systems. So I'm here to tell you what it's like from the beginning to the end of the grad school journey and the mentorship relationships you can build along the way.
Excellent. Thanks, Dante. Now that we know a little bit more about our panelists, we can begin. Let's hope that it will be an interesting conversation. Our first question today is for both of our mentors, Keenan and Elisabeth. And here it goes. Why do you think it is important to mentor someone? Any one of you can answer, Keenan or Elisabeth.
Keenan, your name was called first, so you get to go first.
I thought we were going to do this alphabetically. Never mind. Why is it? The question is why. Why is it important to be a mentor, or what do I get out of mentor? I guess. But it's intrinsically rewarding. I think that I've been given a lot by this industry. I've been given a lot by the people who I have interacted with across the course of my career so far. And really, I guess I want to give a lot as well. It's probably, if I'm really honest with everyone, it's probably a wee bit about ego as well. I've made a lot of mistakes along the way in my career, and what I'd like to see is people not commit those same mistakes. And so, as I'm talking to people, what I really try and do is I try and share why it went wrong for me, when it went wrong for me, and what I learned along the way, and then sharing that hopefully help others avoid those same pitfalls. And I guess finally, it's really about making sure that another thing why, because actually as a lifelong learner, I get a lot out of the relationship myself. It is not it's not a one-way street, it's always a two-way street. So every time I interact with people, every time I talk about my own experiences, it allows me a little bit more time to reflect on what I did or what I didn't do at that time, and helps me grow as a professional and as a person. Elisabeth.
Thanks, Keenan. That was great. I think mentorship is actually what drew me to my current role, because everything that I've had the opportunity to do in my life has been because somebody opened a door for me or lifted me up to a position where I had that opportunity or knocked down a barrier that was in front of me. And I really wanted to be able to give back. And in an academic role, you have the opportunity to just naturally have these really long and potentially very deep partnerships. And that was very meaningful for me. And I don't want to give the impression that I'm the mentor. I'm also a mentee. I have a whole suite of people whom I turn to regularly whenever I run into any sort of snag, whether it's personal, professional, technical. And so I see this really as a circular process rather than a linear thing. So it's really just about paying it forward, I think, and keeping that going.
That's good. That's good. So this leads me to another question that how does your personal experience influence your current mentoring activity? This one goes to the whole panel, so each one of you can answer. This is meant to be a conversation also, so just go ahead. Anyone?
I guess I can start. So like Elisabeth alluded to a little bit, grad school is essentially a built-in mentoringship experience because you tend to be working closely with a supervisor and advisor for so long. I think that was one of the benefits of starting grad school, was that structure was already in place. I think for me, something that's been interesting about being in grad school, though, is that you're not necessarily restricted to one mentor by any means. And so while Elisabeth is probably the person who I interact with the most when it comes to research, there are also other professors within the department who have become mentors to me, or people who I've met as co-authors on a manuscript that we've been working with. So grad school just sort of becomes this whole tree of potential mentors, which I think has been really, really cool.
I think just to add a little bit on my experience being in an industry for all of my career since I left university, it helped a lot to build that network of knowledge, right? It's a network of guidance that you can have of people that have way more experience than you. It can come back and avoid and prevent that you will commit the same mistakes, and that helps a lot. And on top of that, that's the, if you think professionally, right? Throughout the time being working in the industry, you develop so many friends by doing this, because you really get to know each other really well by understanding each one's desires and old experiences, mistakes, fears. And it becomes a network of friendship. So it in my experience has been very helpful for this.
That's very good to hear also. But from what I hear from you, Tiago, is that sometimes mentoring can be overlapped by friendship. Does that influence your relationship also? Especially if you are both working at the same company, does it have some influence on your activities or your regular meetings or whatever?
Yeah, that's a good point, Benjamin. I'll start and I'll open up for everyone else. But I think, in my opinion, mentoring or a successful mentorship, it works for me as a long-term relationship, right? It maybe for specific topics, you can get a really good advice from someone to solve a specific problem. But if you're looking for that long mentorship, if you're looking to build or understand where you want to go in your near, midterm, long-term future, the long-lasting relationship for me, it's always been very preferable. But in that, if you can last that relationship for long enough, you become friends at some point. And going to your point of working in the same company, I think I agree. There's a comment from Jesse that maybe if me and Keenan in this example, if Keenan was my direct manager, it would probably not be completely unbiased. But we work in the same team in the same company, and as I have all the mentors as well that work in the same company, actually there's a good benefit to it, because we can discuss things that happen internally that we wouldn't be able to discuss with people outside of the company, and that gives you real examples of challenges that we solve together, and then improves the learning, I think.
Thanks, Tiago. That's a very good point also. But considering, well, Keenan, you want to?
Maybe, yeah. Benjamin, if you don't mind, I might just try and build a little on that. And I think that the first thing I would say is that I don't think up until we started thinking about this workshop and our participation in it, I'm not sure that Tiago and I ever sort of described ourselves as mentor and mentee. We never had those labels. We chatted to each other. We talked through issues. He asked me about challenges that he was facing in the workplace. So you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be. It doesn't have to carry a label. Would be the first point, and I think that probably leads straight into my second point, which is that and Tiago's used this word extensively. It's the right word. The way that interaction happens, it's very much relational, and that's why it often leads to friendships. It's very difficult to have the kind of conversation, that open and free and fluid conversation, if it's a complete stranger or someone you don't like. Then it just becomes transactional. And one thing that this type of interaction can't be, in my view, is transactional. It's just not going to be successful. So it has to be relational, and so it is kind of a natural extension that there's that mutual respect, that mutual trust, that mutual sense of friendship that goes with it.
Great, thanks, Keenan. That's a very good thought that you shared with us. Elisabeth and Dante, have you got something to say?
Yeah, I would just say that I was actually surprised when Fabian showed the results of the survey and that communication skills and personality were ranked as lowly on those bar charts, just because I really do think that it's difficult to have a fulfilling and gratifying mentorship relationship, like Keenan said, unless you can have that interaction with someone. And so it can be difficult if you're trying to find a mentor remotely when you don't have that opportunity to meet them face to face or have like the introduction in those contexts then is going to be very structured, and it's better when it can happen just naturally. But I think something that would perhaps benefit people if they are seeking mentors is to ask some of the other people who either work with them or in the grad school context, if that person has other students who you could reach out to and just ask them about their advising style, and just learn a little bit more about how that person communicates, because some people do really well if the information is always presented very efficiently and very briskly, and they just, they want to know the facts and that's how they operate best. But some other people respond better to a more sensitive approach, or I don't know, just being more of a personal relationship. And so I think that there are presumably both mentors and mentees within the pool who have all of these different communication styles, but it is really important to find someone who matches up with your preferred style of interacting.
Excellent. Elisabeth, do you want to follow up?
Yeah, I wanted to build on that a little bit and say that I think mentoring and on either side of the relationship, the mentor or the mentee, it really is what you put into it. And sometimes, at great distance, or if you don't know someone well, or you don't have the fortuitous circumstances that allow you to interact often, it can be really difficult. But the more that you put into that relationship, the more everybody's going to get out of it. And I think that we have to sort of conceptually separate, maybe it's a Venn diagram, that there's some overlap between friendship and mentorship, but not all friends are mentors or vice versa. And same with advisors and bosses. You can have an advisor or a boss to whom you go for certain things, objective progress in whatever you're working on, but that person doesn't necessarily have to be the person that will sit down with you and work together with you on your life challenges, whether those are personal or professional. And that leads me to one additional thought, that I think it's important to have different types of people to fill different roles when you're facing different things in your life. So I know that I'm only one of a myriad of people that have gotten Dante to where she is now, and the same goes for me. There are some that I consider almost friends, or definitely friends, or people that I wouldn't contact unless I had some particular question that was right up their alley. And I think that they're uniquely positioned to give me advice or strategic guidance about how to surmount that. And so you can have all of these relationships sort of in your back pocket and utilize those and work on those to the extent that they're mutually beneficial at different times in your life.
That's some point, Elisabeth. I agree with you. And I'm also gonna take something that Dante and Tiago mentioned before, is that for building a long-lasting mentoring relationship, that I think it is like the common trend that everyone wants, or according to the survey results, we also see that. Does the mentor-mentee's personality play a key role to create this long-lasting relationship? And what about their cultural differences and or similarities? What do you make up of this?
I think there's obviously got to be some role that personality plays in it. Yeah, if you don't get along with the person, it's going to be very hard to seek them out when you're feeling vulnerable. So I think that definitely is a big issue. In terms of how similar or different you are, some of the best mentors I've had have been people who have lived completely different lives from me. And that's one of the things that makes them such a strong mentor, is that they have a completely fresh perspective than me. And so they can see opportunities that I might not. I think it's good to have some shared values, but I don't think that you just have to be a duplicate of your mentor.
I agree with Dante. The different backgrounds, different cultural backgrounds can actually bring new points of view and makes you see challenges or opportunities that you didn't see it before. And if I take back take from the comment that Elisabeth made on mentorship being beyond just professional guidance, but helping you go through the challenges in your life. I think personality plays a key role, at least to attract you at first, to start that relationship, right? And building that relationship. You don't need to be, it would be hard for you to, or at least in my case, to direct myself to talk to someone that has a different, very different personality than what I do. I think it helps.
But you seem to not have a single problem with, for example, you being from Brazil and Keenan from New Zealand. That's definitely not a problem for each one of you, right?
Well, it's because rugby is our national sport and football is their national sport, so there's never a conflict on that.
Yes, I couldn't agree more with you, Keenan.
I think, look, maybe it may be worthwhile at this juncture to talk about what mentorship and menteeship isn't, because it's as valuable to talk about what it isn't as it is to what it is. And the first word that sort of pops into my head is it's not about judging. And so, the question was posed before about, that you both work in the same company, blah, blah, blah. The conversations that I have with Tiago, it's never a performance review. It's never judgmental. It's never, how do I get fast tracked up this emotional ladder? It's about what challenges are you facing? Where do you see your blind spots? What mistakes have I made in the past, as I mentioned before, and how can I help you navigate those, those choppy waters? And so, if you think through the lens that if we accept the hypothesis that a successful relationship is about not judging each other, but just listening to each other and trying to help each other through choppy waters, then the cultural contrasts melt away. The gender contrasts melt away. The race, the race or background contrasts melt away, because you're just two people helping each other. And I think it was Dante that said previously, and Elisabeth mentioned it as well. Actually, don't look for someone who looks like you in a relationship. Look for somebody else. Look for something different. That's going to enrich and diversify your thought. It's going to allow you to be challenged. And you've got to be prepared to be challenged, but always with that context that it's not judging.
I want to add a slight counterpoint to that too, that I think sometimes when you are a minority, it's important to have mentors who look like you in some way. So often for me as a woman in mining, I need to know that it's a place that I can be. And so I do have other women who I've chosen as mentors because specifically they do look like me. I think this is a challenge, and it can be a challenge in economic geology, because our sort of younger professional cohort is much more diverse, I think, in the society and in the profession than the senior cohort. And so sometimes those mentors might not necessarily be available. If you're a junior person coming up, there may not be somebody who has the exact role that you want, who does look like you. And that's one of the challenges that I think that we have to face and try to overcome as a society, because we really want that diversity in the society and in the profession.
So Elisabeth, does having a mentor or a mentee of the same gender helps reduce the gap in mining in the world, gender gap in the mining world? What do you think about that? Does it help or not?
Well, I think for me personally, it has helped to see women who are doing other things in their lives that are similar to the other things that I do in my life, who are also achieving professional success. Sometimes it can be daunting because the things that they've faced or that they faced 40 years ago are maybe more challenging than the things that I'm facing now, but also inspiring. So I don't know if I can answer that more broadly, but I do think that we sort of all have to chime in and represent the diversity that we either embody or that we aspire to have.
I think I'd like to jump in on this too. There have been a series of young professional women, younger as in sub 40, who I've watched their career trajectory, and it has been so inspiring to think, oh, well, if I apply myself and if I keep looking for these opportunities, maybe I could see the same sorts of successes they've had, as opposed to if I never saw those figures. I think whenever there were challenges, it would feel they might feel a lot harder to overcome, whereas you have the data points now, you've seen somebody else do it, and so it is helpful for getting your own self-motivation up, but I can do it too.
Definitely, yes, I agree completely. So I just want to jump into another topic regarding mentoring, and it's got some meaning to the current world situation. With the COVID pandemic, how have mentoring activities changed with the lack of physical interactions?
I'll start with that one, Benjamin. In my specific case, I mean, as Keenan said, we never were really formal, or we never labeled ourselves as formal mentor or mentee. We were just friends that seeked, especially from my side to Keenan, seeked advice because he was more experienced and has done a lot of things on the professional career that I wanted to do. But going to the question, we started already virtually. Our relationship, we lived in both in different countries. Keenan was living in Chile, and I was living in Australia now, and I still have lots of other friends and mentors there across the world. So that has always been the case of doing connecting virtually. But having said that, and in the case of my relationship with Keenan, I was fortunate enough that living in different countries, we had the opportunity of having lots of face-to-face meetings and interactions, right? Either in Chile or in Australia, and I think that's critical to accelerate that, the building that relationship. And I'm sure that doing everything virtual now with COVID does generate an impact on building that personal relationship.
Excellent. Anyone else want to share something?
Much like any sort of normal relationship, and this is just a variation of a relationship, right? Some of the best conversations are when you're having a meal at a restaurant, or you're having a coffee in a coffee shop. So I think my personal view, and this is just my opinion. I am quite a social creature. To me, I very much miss that face-to-face contact with not only with Tiago. We only see each other gosh, I don't know, once a year, maybe twice a year, if that. But you know, just being in the office environment and being around the team and interacting with the team and having those water cooler moments. I mean, for me, that's possibly one of the bigger stresses that I've had over the last 12 to 18 months. So that's just my personality. So it does impact in the way that I interact with people, for sure.
Thanks, Keenan. And what about Dante and Elisabeth? In your case, it is an academic advisorship. What were the biggest challenges or benefits of it being that way? And considering the COVID pandemic also, the lack of physical interactions?
I think in some ways, COVID has helped the frequency of our meetings. I don't know, at the same time, I was coming towards the end of my degree too. And so we needed to be meeting more regularly to be able to get through all of the hoops necessary to getting to the end. But I'm really glad that I was at the end of the program when COVID hit, because we already knew each other so well. I know what Elisabeth's moods are and she knows what mine are like. And so it wasn't trying to read that through the screen for the first time. I think that, yeah, having that structure where you can't just pop into somebody's office right now. You have to set something up and send a link, and it's very structured. That had advantages because it forced us to stick to our meetings. But yeah, I think overall it's been okay. But I'm glad that we already had this pre-existing relationship before we got hit with the pandemic.
Yeah. Do you think that if you've had started your relationship during the pandemic, would it have been something bad, or would it have been less effective during your advisorship?
I think for me personally, yes. I think that at the beginning of a program too, you really do need guidance, because as a grad student, you spend the entire first year not knowing what you're doing anyways, and thinking you're going to do research, but instead you get busy with classes and teaching. And so being able to have interactions with your supervisor, your advisor, and someone who can say, no, that's okay, that's the way it's supposed to be, is really good. I had a conversation with a grad student not too long ago, and we were talking about how at the beginning of a graduate student and advisor relationship, sometimes it seems like the graduate student wants to be this perfect student, and they want to have accomplished all of their goals before every meeting that they have with their advisor. And so if you don't know the person very well, you might think that they're making a lot of progress when in fact they're really struggling. And so I think that during the pandemic, it falls a little bit more on whoever's in the mentor role to, if you're new to that relationship, new to the mentee, to really be asking them directly, you know, how has this week been? What have you gotten done? Are you feeling okay? Are you doing okay? I think the pandemic has just been so hard for so many people that you really can't separate that right now from the advising role. It's important to check in on people, especially if they're trying to tell you that they've been just as productive as ever, because I doubt that's true.
I want to add a little bit to that and say, all of us, everybody in this webinar has people that are junior to them, and that you have people in your life that you aspire to do what you're doing. And so maybe this is a good reminder for everybody to sort of reach out and check in with those folks, because it is harder in the pandemic when we're all remote to reach up and ask someone for help or for guidance. So maybe we can all reach out. And then I know we're all sick of hearing about the advantages of our Zoom world, but I just noticed a question in the chat about people living in Africa wanting to participate in the mentoring program. Wherever you are, I think that there is an opportunity, if you're digitally connected, to take advantage of that. Everybody is used to having Zoom heart-to-hearts and long Zoom meetings, regular Zoom meetings, or whatever platform it is. So we should be able to leverage that a little bit better in the mentoring program.
That's good advice, Elisabeth. Thanks for that. So considering the time we've spent already, and we're heading towards the end of the questionnaire, I wanted to ask you, even though we've already covered something of this, or most of it, overall, what do you think are the biggest benefits of mentoring within the society or outside the society? What do you think?
I think personal growth for the mentor and the mentee. I was thinking about how Keenan mentioned that it made him think about his own life a little bit more. And having that opportunity for reflection is really important, especially with how fast everything moves these days.
I think just to add, the self-awareness, it comes to these meetings, right? Because if you really go open and your mentor or your colleague, it's also open to give you honest feedback, and you learn a lot about yourself, and I think that's critical.
Keenan, Dante, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think for me, I agree with what Thiago and Elisabeth have said. I think the advantage of mentorship for me is it feels a little bit like hand-holding, but it's someone there who can get you from one difficult place to another, right? I find when things are going well, that's not when I am necessarily reaching out to my mentors. It's when I'm struggling with something. And I know that in those instances, it's usually my mentors who are able to convince me that there is a path forward, there is a solution. Either it's something they've already experienced, and so they can make suggestions, or just because of where they are in their role or career, they see a path that I hadn't necessarily. And so I think that's been the biggest benefit for me to date, is in instances where I'm feeling discouraged, they give me a new sense of hope.
Yeah, look, I think no single person holds the answers, right? And so every conversation around this, I think, certainly helps me deepen my own thinking, extends my network, enhances my communication skills. So, you know, as I mentioned before, it's by no means a one-way street. There's a lot in it for me as well, in my own personal growth and my own personal journey. But, you know, putting two heads together and working on something, on a solution, on an outcome, I think is infinitely better than trying to sort of struggle through by yourself.
Excellent. Thanks to all of you. Just a quick reminder for our audience that that you submit questions, because we're gonna jump next to the Q&A session open for you. So remember just to post anything you would like to ask. Let's use our panelists here that are still with us. And well, this was definitely a great and interesting conversation. I want to thank again to our panelists for your very helpful insight and thoughts about mentoring. We now have more or less 20 minutes to answer the questions that you've already submitted from the audience. So one of the questions that comes from them is how to make a first mentor-mentee meeting successful. What do you think about this? This is a good question, actually. It's very interesting.
It's a great question.
I'd be curious, do they mean how do you reach out to someone, or once you've established that you're going to connect, what does that first meeting look like? Because those, I think, those can be different.
I guess it means like the more advanced stage. After the first contact, you meet, and how can you make that meeting a successful one?
So I have my preferred answer to that question, which is one of my favorite things to do as soon as I've met someone is to ask them to just walk through how they got to where they are in their current role and their current career. Because I think it's so fascinating, all of the different pathways that people take to end up in geology and mineral exploration, working for specific companies. People love to share that story because it's an opportunity to get to know the person that you're talking to. And you get to see, you know, that breadth of experiences that lead people to the path that you want to be on. And even in those conversations, you learn things about people that, you know, 30 years, it's still a fun little fact about them.
Thanks, Dante. So jumping to a previous stage from the last question, what do you guys think about what is the best way to approach a potential mentor? How to make first contact, from what I understand.
I want to speak a little bit about the SEG Mentoring Program specifically, because the idea is, you know, you receive somebody's email address and you have to just sort of cold email them. And that's the same if you're looking for a graduate program, you cold email an advisor. Often if you're looking for a job, you do the same thing. And probably starting with what your goal is, you know, is it that you have a specific question, sort of like Dante was sharing, you know, how I noticed that you are X role at X company, and I was wondering if you wouldn't mind talking me through your process to get to that position. That can be a nice way to start. Or, hey, I'm new to economic geology and I don't know anything about it. I wonder if you wouldn't mind having a half an hour conversation and just sort of introducing me or something like that. But giving the mentor an idea of sort of what the scope is of the conversation can be really helpful.
I think that's absolutely right, Elisabeth, and I would encourage everyone. I'd say two things. First, the rule of 6 Ps. Prior planning and preparation prevents poor performance. So know a little bit about what you want, know a little bit about the person you're going to be talking to, and understand. I think, you know, Elisabeth said it very, very well. Look, I see that you've done this. This is something that I can imagine myself doing. Tell me a little bit about how that came about, type thing. Don't just show up and say, I'd like you to be my mentor. You know, that's probably not going to get you terribly far. The second thing I'd say is you know, much like mineral exploration, it's a journey of discovery. It's not going to happen instantly. It's not necessarily going to happen with the first person that you touch base with. These things are organic, they grow. Be prepared to kiss a few frogs along the way and grow that. We talked about earlier on, we talked about the fact that successful mentoring and menteeing is about that mutually beneficial, trustful and respectful relationship. Doesn't happen on the first call. So invest that time to get to know the person, and share with them, you know, some of your dreams and aspirations, and you know, take your time. Take your time.
Just to add something to these comments, I think one really interesting thing to do at one first opportunity is to try to listen to that person, right? What have they done? How they got where they are, and listen on the first meeting. So you can, maybe you walk away and you find out that you don't want to be mentored anymore by that person. Not by any issues, but just because the ways that they got where they are, it's not really what you look for. So I think that first relationship or the first meeting is to get to know each other, talk about what you've done and where you want to go.
Excellent. Those were very precise and great answers from you. So we've got another one here that it says like this. Think about networking at a conference. How to switch from a networking to mentoring.
I think it's a little bit like dating. You sort of have to ask somebody out for coffee, or, you know, I was wondering, I noticed you had some really great questions at my poster. Do you have time to chat? I'd love to hear your perspective a little bit further about my project or my whatever. It is taking a bit of a risk. And I like Keenan's expression of having to kiss a few frogs. I would say, don't be hurt if it doesn't pan out the first time.
So we all agree then. Well, I'm gonna check if there's more questions. Well, we've already covered that having a mentoring relationship is can be effective on a COVID pandemic, and teleworking and having meetings virtually can work. But I still got something in mind that it's hard to establish the first contact through an email or through a Zoom call or something like that. It's always better to have a face-to-face meeting. And as Keenan said, we are all, he is a social creature, but I think that humans are a social species also. So we tend to get together and to work together also. So my overall thought about this is that it's always better to have a face-to-face and to meet each other personally. As Dante said, getting to know each other and to know your own expressions or non-verbal communication is also a great way to understand each other. But I do believe that with the current pandemic, it's a big challenge to build successful relationships from scratch. So, well, any thoughts on this, or any final comments about the current situation and how to overcome it properly?
I think what Elisabeth mentioned earlier is actually true. Like, yes, it's hard. Digital is never going to replace one-on-one interaction. Like, and like Keenan mentioned, the ability to just go to a coffee shop and chat with someone. But right now is the time. Like, we've all been operating for months only doing things over the laptop, and so people are so much more open to that right now. I have, you know, as I finished up, I've reached out to people knowing that I'm going to be looking for a job soon, and the opportunity right now is I can send them an email and say, hey, I'm finishing up. This is what I've been working on. I know you do something similar at some of your projects. Do you mind if we schedule a 20-minute conversation? And people are so much more likely to accept that right now, as opposed to, you know, 15 months ago, where that would seem maybe a little obtrusive, whereas now we're all used to it. So there maybe isn't any time like the present for the amount of opportunities to connect digitally as there are right now.
I might just, maybe if I can take a couple of minutes just to share my own experiences over the last 18 months. In my work environment, I changed roles about 9 months ago, and I changed bosses 7 months ago. And I moved from one leadership team to another leadership team. I haven't met any of those people, including my boss, in a face-to-face. And I was in an appraisal on Monday with the CEO of BHP. The comment that we received, we were all there in front of him in exactly this kind of environment. We're all little boxes on the screen. And he commented on how joined up we were and how cohesive we were. Now, you know, I'm sure we could be better, but, you know, it's a great start. And I think it just demonstrates that as humans, despite the fact that we are largely social creatures, and some of us perhaps more so than others, we're also incredibly resilient creatures and very easy to adapt at the environment that we're in. So with that, I would encourage you all to not be disheartened and think, you know, gosh, I'm feeling very isolated here. I'm out on a limb, I'm on a different continent, I'm never going to meet this person, because a hunger for success and a hunger to make something happen will always find a way of being accomplished. And so please, all of you listening, be prepared to have that little bit more resilience, be prepared to have that little bit more flexibility, and it will happen. It will happen.
That was really well said, Keenan.
That's a very good thought. Fantastic. Elisabeth, anything else?
No, I like that.
Just following up. So fantastic. Thanks to our panelists for their time. We really appreciate the effort of participating with us. Also, thanks to everyone from the audience who submitted their questions. I'm sorry that we ran out of time and of questions at the end. And as a reminder, an archive of today's presentation will be available next week on the SEG website and also on the YouTube channel. Deanne, if you don't mind, can we show the last slides, please? Thank you very much. So thanks to everyone who attended today's webinar. We really hope that you enjoyed the discussions as much as we did, and that you are now encouraged to engage in a mentoring relationship, rather as a mentee looking for guidance or as an experienced professional willing to help someone else. Remember, when you leave the webinar, please take a moment to complete the survey. We will use your input for assembling future events. Good luck to everyone, and thanks again.